What is required for a change to take place? What's needed so that the change can happen? Often, as a new therapist, we feel responsible for all of the things that happen with our client. We feel responsible for making the changes take place. It used to be when I was a young therapist that I was afraid to test. I was afraid to really check out with my client whether the work we'd been doing was effective, whether it had made a change. And so I would just kind of work around it. I wouldn't ask direct questions. I wouldn't explore it. I wouldn't really try to figure it out. Whereas what I discovered was that it wasn't being fair to me, and it wasn't being fair to my client to not really check it out. That the only real rule about change is that when it's done, it's done. If it's not done, it just means there's more work to do, and we just need to work at what else can we do using the law of requisite variety or flexibility to bring out something else from our toolkit to create the change. And so now I test very deeply. I test both by watching the client, picking up their energy and their nonverbal signals, and I watch through their language by finding out or checking to see, is this really complete? Well, if you say, and so is that done now? And they say, yeah, then I know that I want to explore a little bit more. Well, go a little bit closer, check it out, see if it's really done. So I want to make sure, and at the end, I want to do lots of testing. I want to go back to a whole bunch of times where it used to be a problem or where it might be a problem in the future. I want to be sure. Now, it might only be 1 or 2 times that I need to go back to, depending on what I'm picking up from them non-verbally. But I want to feel confident that it's done, and I want my client to feel confident that it's done. And so it started me looking at really, what is the responsibility for change? Whose responsibility is it to create those changes? And so there are 3 conditions for change to take place. The first thing is to release the negative emotions, the limiting decisions that have been holding the client back, those locked away things that have been in the unconscious mind, those limiting beliefs, those messed up values, and to integrate the parts, those conflicts that happen. I want this, but I don't want this. I want to change, but I don't deserve it. All of those things that have been holding the client back, all of those things inside, remembering that there's no content in content worth knowing. The only content worth knowing is context, where, when, and with whom, process, the thoughts going on inside, and the structure, the beliefs and values. And so this is the process and the structure. We want to release those issues, those things that have been held in the unconscious mind. And that's a joint responsibility. That's a responsibility between you and your client. And neither of you can do it independently. You can't make your client do that work. All you can do is open up the pathway and nudge them along, opening the challenge, the opportunities for it to happen. But you can't make them actually do it. You can't make them close their eyes and work with that inside. And so that's a joint responsibility. But from then on, the rest of the responsibility is our client's. The client needs to take action. So when they leave, I mean, the whole purpose of therapy is not for them to be better in the therapy room, but for them to be better in the world outside. And so that's the experimental lab, is the outer world. We want the client to be different out there. They want to be different out there. And they're not going to be different if they do exactly the same thing in exactly the same way. So they need to be willing to take action. They need to be willing to do something, to be different. It might be to throw away their cigarettes. It might be to tell somebody that that they have a certain need, or that they want something, or it might be to restructure their priorities in their life, whatever it is, they need to take action. They need to be willing to be different. Take a risk. Tell somebody you like them. Reach out to somebody. Whatever. So you need to take action. And we can't, as a therapist, make that happen. We can only encourage it to happen. And that's why we sometimes assign tasks, so that those tasks presuppose that action to be successful. And the third thing that's necessary is the client needs to focus on what they want, not what they don't want. And so that's also a process. That's a cognitive thought process. The client needs to use their conscious mind to direct their willpower, to direct their thoughts away from what they don't want. Now, we know that what we resist persists. So we don't want our client to be fighting those thoughts. We just want them to redirect and focus on what they want. So if, for example, we're talking about habit change, like perhaps smoking, we don't want our client to, when they go out there, to see a cigarette and go, oh, I really wish I had a cigarette, and just start focusing on that. We want them to go focus on, oh, I feel so much better. I'm going to just take a deep breath. Maybe I'll go for a jog, or I'll do some exercise, or whatever, and to focus on what they want. When client is in an environment with somebody that used to make them angry, and that person does that same pattern, we don't want our client to be resisting that anger. We don't want them to be thinking about the anger. We just want them to focus away from it. It's okay. It doesn't matter. I just want to relax my body. I want to let that tension go. So we want our client to be focusing on what we want, remembering that our thoughts become suggestions to the unconscious mind. Everything we think, our unconscious mind takes personally. So we want those thoughts to be those suggestions.